Hello everyone, good morning. Good morning. Okay, so question first, how did Amazon start? Who's gonna answer that? You'll get a t-shirt. Bookstore. Okay, t-shirt के नाम पे ही answer दोगे, is it? Okay, so this guy gets a t-shirt. So can we all agree that startups evolve over time? So we start as somewhere we think, okay, ki we want to target this particular audience, but we might evolve, right? There can be many reasons why we are evolving. Maybe our funders are telling, our investors are telling us that, you know what, this is not working out, or customers are telling us, or maybe our entire vision changes. There can be a lot of reasons, right? Can we all agree that startups evolve over time? Yes? We know from where Facebook started and where it is right now, right? So we have established that. Now, what we'll be doing in the next half an hour is that we'll assume that today I have decided to start a startup, okay? And we'll together see how to go about it. Matlab, since morning we are talking about, you know, this should be your attitude, you should think like this. We have talked about impossible challenges. But when you really start, like what are the things that you're going to do, right? And also when someone says startup, you could actually mean a team of 2 people. Say just Gaurav and I start a startup today. It is still a startup, right? And say we increase to team of 50 people. That is also a startup. But what we'll be doing when we are just 2 people and what we'll be doing when we are 50 people will be completely different, right? And we'll grow to become a team of 1,000, 10,000 people. So we'll also talk about how we are going to evolve our startup. What all things are going to change in our thought process. Does that make sense till now? Yes? I can't hear. Okay, right. So I am Keerti. I teach. Okay, so say today I decide to sell my courses, same as InterviewReady. Okay, I have my own selling point, but I teach really well, so that I know. I'm also a software developer, so I know that, you know, for good systems, you have to design a lot of things. You have to write a lot of code, how system design really looks. I know, right? So I leave my job today and I'm like, I'm going to start building a startup. How much time do you think it is going to take me to make an entire platform like InterviewReady? It's going to take a lot of time, right? Is it wise of me to leave my job, have no money coming in, and spend so much time building an entire platform? Am I going to do it? It will always be in the back of my head that I should do it, but I'll never really do it, right? So what is the wise thing to do when I'm just starting out? So as InterviewReady also did, I'll think of starting, maybe I'll use a third-party app. What I'll do is, my selling point is, I'm going to make courses. Now I'm going to use your platform to sell it, right? So the platform is going to take care of the entire thing. Maybe I don't like the platform so much. It's not everything that I want, but I'm starting somewhere, right? Now, suppose I start making 2 sales, 5 sales in a month, right? I hear customers telling me that my courses are good. So now I have the confidence, I have the validation that, yeah, people like what I'm doing. There's a future to this, right? That is when I get the confidence that, yeah, I can invest my time and money into building the platform, right? Because it doesn't make sense from the starting itself. I become overconfident. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to invest my 6 months developing something. And later I realize this is not the course that I want, or someone else has already released the course, right? So at the starting, you have to be very fast to at least start making some sales. Does it make sense till now? Yeah. So now I decide that, okay, I'm making few sales and I decided I'm going to make my own platform, right? So being good in system design, am I going to start making the boxes that I'm going to host these many microservices? Say I have like 9 boxes in my system design and I start making the entire thing. Does it seem feasible to you? So now I know that I'm going to be making a lot of changes in the code. Now every time I have to make deployment, I have to take care of all the, say, 9 to 10 services working properly. Does it seem like a sensible solution right now with only 2 developers working? Yes. Okay, so how many microservices does InterviewReady have right now, Gaurav? So the Gaurav Sen, who is actually teaching system design to you all, has 1 microservice running. It's 3. Would any of you have guessed that it's just 3 microservices presently? You might have thought that being Gaurav Sen, he might have designed a very complex system, right? But okay, but it does make sense to start from like a monolith, have your code running, have a platform, have the UI that you want, have the experience that you want, and make it very simple. Because why do we need distributed systems? You don't need it when you're just a team of 2 people, when you have just very few customers, right? You have to think about what is the priority right now. In the starting, my priority was that I want to make some sales. I want some sort of validation that, yeah, my idea is going to work in the market. Later, my thing is that, okay, I am not liking the UI, I am not liking the payment process. So my priority has now changed to now building my own platform. I want good UI, I want good payment process. Does that make sense? Yeah, everyone with me? So what we have done so far, we created a startup, then we created our own platform, and we have a monolith, right? Now when we have a monolith and say we become a bigger team, say of 10 to 15 people. Now we are hiring more and more people, different people working on different things. Now the usual problem with monoliths happen. Now we need microservices, right? So now we have to think about how we are going to divide our monolith to microservices. With me? Yeah. So now we have to start thinking of, as we are growing, we have to start thinking about making our system distributed. We have to think of caching. We have to think of replication. We have to think of security. We have to start thinking of these things one by one. We can't start dealing with everything together, right? Interesting story. So I was working in a startup and we had not even released. We were just in development phase and we had just test data on our database and it was hacked. And I got a mail that if you want your data, you have to pay this many dollars and all that. And I was like, it is still in testing phase. All the data was there was like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So worked for me, but my mind was blown that, okay, someone is already trying to hack it. Just imagine when it goes live, right? So as soon as you have some audience, some customers, security takes a huge priority. Say right now, Gaurav has given his DB password to say 5 developers, right? Because he has a lot of trust in them. But they can actually do a lot with that data, right? If they want, they can really screw Gaurav over. Now tomorrow, if his team grows to say a team of 10 people or 50 people, can he give the DB password to so many people? No, right? That's not the sensible thing to do. So as you grow bigger, you have to prioritize your security. Make sense? And you can't afford to lose your data, so you have to prioritize replication. You want to make it faster, so you have to do caching, right? So now your system becomes distributed. Now one thing that, so we are talking about high-level design, right? When we talk about system design, but we never talked about low-level design. How are you going to start writing the code? Now I said in the starting that, yeah, we are going to start from monolith and slowly divide into microservices. But should you do the same with low-level design? So in the starting, I'll just write one class and I'll start implementing everything inside. Does that make sense? No, it's not the right thing to do. Why? Because, see, even though I'm writing code, I should be following object-oriented programming. I should be following some design patterns to make sure tomorrow I can reuse the same code, right? Tomorrow when I'm dividing my one monolith to microservices, I should be able to reuse the entire code and it should be very easy. Today, if Gaurav has implemented payment in InterviewReady and he is using it just to sell courses, and tomorrow what he also wants to make mock interviews paid. And he says that, okay, payment should happen for mock interviews also. But while writing code, what developers did, they made it very tightly coupled with selling courses, payment. Like they don't have separate classes, they haven't written it properly. Now when he wants to sell mock interviews, it's not going to be easy, right? That is not the right thing to do. So for low-level design-wise, from the starting itself, you have to make sure that your classes are extremely extendable. Your code is extremely reusable. So although for understanding the entire system, like high-level system design is very important, but I personally think that low-level design is much more important when you're going to start building a system. Because how much code are you going to rewrite? Even if your entire startup's vision changes, even if your entire selling point changes, you can still reuse a lot of your code. If nothing else, login, dashboard, payment, these things can easily be reused, right? If these were properly written in different classes, you can keep different microservices in future and you can reuse the code. Does that make sense? Right? So does that give you some idea about when you start building a startup, how are you going to start thinking about this? Right? Now, we have talked about high-level design, low-level design. Let's also talk about other things like when we start, we don't have documentation in place, right? Gaurav right now, when he started with like 2 people, or when today we start, are we going to sit and write the entire points that we are discussing today? No, right? Because I want to sell my courses as fast as possible. I don't want to waste my time documenting the entire thing. But now when my team grows from 5 people to 10 people, and suppose I was working with 3 developers and they leave, I have to keep giving Keerti to new people, right? That is when I have to start prioritizing documentation, right? So as you see, your entire priority is changing as you become like from team of 2 people to team of 10 people to team of 50 people, right? And not just documentation. You talk about analytics, about logging, about monitoring. These are the things that we developers have to do, right? So now analytics, we don't have logging in place in the starting. We are not taking care of analytics at all. But once we start selling courses, say we have sold like 1,000 courses and we have reached a plateau. Now we want to understand what's going wrong and we don't have analytics in place. What are we going to do? Right? We need to have it to proactively see that what's going wrong, what might go wrong in future. That is where we need analytics, logging and stuff, right? Even hiring, so in talks today, we heard very ideal things that there should be processes in place. And but initially when we start, it's very easy to have like, so I am a single person, I am hiring people, I have some thought process and I can hire say 10 people from that mindset. But tomorrow my teammates are going to interview and they are going to be hiring people. And the entire thought process might be different. It's not like what is right and wrong. Maybe a candidate is right according to my teammate, but is not a good fit according to me, right? So when is it that you start having these things in place? As you grow bigger. You can't prioritize them in the starting, but you have to prioritize them at some point in time. And that is where startups usually have this thing that we are constantly in survival mode. That is why they feel that they are constantly in a lot of competition, a lot of work. Because, see, initially they'll start with, let's somehow just make things work. Then later they realize, okay, this is not working. We need documentation, we need analytics, we need all of this data earlier itself. Then that is when you are actually becoming a bigger company. Right? Any questions till now? Anything? Yeah.
You were talking about hiring. I wanted to know how important is like initial hiring. Does it really set the company culture or is it like not the priority and you can make it better? Like the initial code you write may be the most important part of the code base.
Right. So when you say initial hiring, I'm assuming like 2 to 3 people, right? So see, according to me, the intent should be good. Coding can be taught to someone because Gaurav would still be doing reviews. When I hire someone, I will still do code reviews. If I see that if I give good feedback to the person, and if the person can take the feedback, can learn about design pattern, can implement it properly, I'm going to hire the person. But if the person is not trying to understand only and then the person is like, I have written right only, it's working, no. If that is the attitude, I'm not going to hire. So honestly, if I am starting a startup today, I'm going to look for the right attitude and not for like the skills. Because skills can be developed. When we are a very small team, and also if you see, language-wise, so if you hear different talks from InterviewReady today, you will come to know that they have a lot of different languages in place for different microservices, and they're doing different things using different tech. Now, when I hire, I'm not going to expect all the developers to know all the tech that I'm going to use. In fact, I might change my priority completely. Like, I might have hired a developer who writes code in Java, but now I want some Python scripts to be written. I want the developer to be able to write it, right? So I am not looking for developers who can code in all the languages. I'm looking for developers who have the right attitude, who can Google and still write the code that I want them to write. I will be there to mentor you, because that is what a startup is. It's a very small team. And you're going to be doing a lot of different things. You can't just go like, I'm going to hire one person for Java, I'm going to hire one person for Python, just one for front end. Usually, most developers will be doing full stack. They'll be working on different things, and you'll expect them to learn and do more and more. Right? Right? And also, things like customer success, marketing, sales, all of this will come over time. It won't come from the starting itself. Like when Gaurav is setting up team, he will be like, okay, so I'll have a chief meme officer. I will have a customer success person. I will have a social media person. He can't start like that. Right? Today, we also can't start like that. I don't have the money. I don't have time to invest in customer success. I just want to sell few courses in the beginning. So again, your priority is changing. You have to decide at a particular point what is more important. Gaurav is saying solve all the problems to become 10x. But you have to solve one problem before solving the other one, right? So you have to prioritize and decide right now what is the most important thing. And then things will keep changing. Make sense? Any other questions? Yeah.
Okay. So I had one question. So you emphasized on, sorry? Oh, okay. So I wanted to ask you one question. So you emphasized a lot on low-level design, right? Now I have a difference of opinion, but I wanted to understand your take on it as well. So you suggested that when the team is small, we will initially want to go with a monolith. But whenever we talk about system design, we think a lot about the back end, but we tend to miss out on the front end. So I see that there are a lot of scenarios where moving out of a monolith will be very difficult for a front end job, because moving into a microservice for the backend services is pretty easy, because you build services, change the endpoints, and you just call that service in the front end. But when you are actually moving out, let's say today when I talk about a monolith, it needs to be a full stack kind of a stuff that I need, something like a Laravel or Next or Express with something like that. So when we want to move out, for example, if I want to move out from PHP and want to move to React today, I see a big problem there, not just in terms of analytics, but also in terms of session sharing, to name a couple of them. So how do you think that can be tackled?
So why are you changing your front end? Exactly, you're dividing a monolith to microservices. You're still calling your APIs. Now just instead of hitting one service, it's hitting different services.
No.
What is the problem?
So problem is like, there will be many cases, like I told you, like React is like, for example, I'm talking about specific use case. Like today, everybody wants to use React, right? And there might be many monolith people who will be using a monolith, something in Laravel or Symfony. So in that scenario, you won't be releasing the entire, when you are actually making a transition, you won't be shifting all at once, right? There might be some pages on still on Symfony, some pages are still on React. So you need to do some session sharing. So this is one of the problem. Other problem is that I might want to build reusable components, but these are not possible in monoliths that are available today. These are only possible in stacks like React and Next. So these are the kind of problems, like how do we tackle these?
So actually, see, front end, when I said we will switch from monolith to microservices, I talked more about the back end. See, UI, actually we build the entire platform that we are building for ourselves to give a good UI and to give the experience that we want, right? And if we want to shift the UI or you want to shift the front end, that is a different change. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about back end right now, that you have to shift from monolith to microservices. When you want to shift your tech stack itself from, say, something to React, that's a different change. That's not the change that I am talking about. That's a front end level change. Of course, that takes different work, but that's changing the experience, right? What I talked about was that we'll first prioritize the experience and we'll make the platform, and later backend wise we'll change from monolith to microservices. Does that make sense? Yeah? Yeah, you had a question.
So I had like similar questions. So let's say if you decide to build a website, like you sign up on WordPress, you build your LMS and everything, you build a monolith system. Now it's been 6 months, you are doing like really good sales. This happened with me. I launched the course and it's been going great. Now you want to go from this monolith system to microservices. So what is the first step you take? Because you might have database on some hosting provider and you want to move that database to, let's say, AWS. You have some front end on some other system, so you want to integrate this system and migrate this system to monolith, like to microservices. So what is that process looks like what is the first step you need to take? You can't directly start coding and start doing things, right?
I feel like you answered the question somewhere because, see, you said that the experience wise it's good, but you now want to make it bigger, right? So, experience is good. Now, you want to move your database to, say, AWS. So, that is happening in backend. Your experience is still not changing. That was my point, that you initially prioritize your experience and you initially prioritize what your customers want, and then slowly improve your backend, improve your architecture of the system, right? Then you slowly move that, and when you can build your entire platform from WordPress to, say, when you are capable of giving the similar or better experience, then you move the front end, right? Yep.
Ma'am, actually two questions are there. Like one is like in a startup, definitely features are the highest priority to deliver. So over a past period of time, like 6 months, your code will be too much written. So, but definitely prioritizing the features will lead to technical depths. So how we will plan it to fix those technical depths? And the other question is like in a monolith, you can debug easily, but when you go to microservices or event-driven architecture, the debugging becomes very difficult. So in that case, how we will handle those things and how it will affect the delivery of the features?
So answering the second question first, yes, debugging is very hard, and not just debugging, even deployment, as I was talking about. A lot of things are very hard. So to understand exactly which microservice is failing or exactly where the problem is happening, you need to have proper logging in place. Like the other day, I was solving a problem for a startup. I was helping them out, and we were trying to figure out why a particular thing is not working. It was working in local, it was not working in prod. We assumed that, okay, AWS is working fine. Then we realized that, okay, the limit of the number of requests that can go to that AWS server has reached, and that is why it was the AWS setting which was wrong. It was not problem with the code, and we never really thought of looking at the logs of that, right? So there are a lot of issues that you can run into, and that is the whole point where I suggested that you start from monolith, and only when you have the bandwidth that you can invest the time and the energy to make it distributed, you go there, right? What was the first question you need to, or what do you exactly mean by technical depths? So see, that is why I suggested that low level design is extremely important for the beginning, first thing. And still, if you don't have the time and you start writing very messy code, you think in long term, you will have to invest some time just to, refactor your code. And that might be actually a lot more. You could have just rewritten the whole thing sometimes. So my personal suggestion is that from the starting itself, you should think about writing good code, like at least low level design, so that it can be reused. If the refactoring doesn't take that much of time, you can modify, it is extendable. So I would really, really suggest that you should invest your time in that. That is not something that you should let it be, right? Any other question?
Hi Keerti, my name is Harsha. So I heard that you have been emphasizing on this point, like the developer should be well-rounded. That is, he should be knowing front end, back end, cloud, all these things. Maybe infrastructure as well. So is it because it is profitable for the businesses, or Because what I have seen with my experience is that the guys who have worked generally come through front end in JavaScript, especially. They think that they know backend, but then they don't know backend exactly. It's a kind of specialization, and it goes the same with the front end as well. And I've seen with the architects that because they have a lot of experience in front end, they miss out on a lot of points in the back end. So this approach of knowing everything, is it just for the business profit, or is it that is it a good way to grow? Because I don't find it the right way. Yeah, having knowledge is good, but then specialization must be in one thing, and that would give us good software products.
Right.
That is one of my questions. And second question about the low-level design you have been speaking about. Again, when we come to the low-level design, whenever we are implementing until unless you are enough experienced, there might be chances that you wouldn't know the proper low-level design, how to take the flow forward. You might come across some surprises. Correct. So how can we be completely clear about the LED?
Right. So yeah, I'm going to answer both the questions one by one. So firstly, see, front end versus back end. I think front end, those who have expertise in front end are going to say back end में क्या ही करना होता है, API लिखनी होती है, ऐसे कर देंगे. Back end people will say that front end में क्या ही करना होता है, button move करते रहते हैं हाँ वहाँ. जबकि it is a lot more than that, right? So the meaning of full stack itself has evolved over time. Earlier, the full stack engineers used to be able to do the entire thing, do the deployment also. So they used to be skilled enough to make the entire startup running actually. Now today, if I am hiring a developer and who is I can afford to hire only one developer, I would want that the person can work in both. Now say if I have expertise in backend, I'll hire someone who has expertise in front end but can work in backend also. Obviously, everyone will have one better expertise maybe in front end or backend. But in a startup, when you want to be able to deploy, when you want to be able to fix bugs on front end as well as back end, you will want someone who is flexible to be able to work in both. It is okay if you have priority, if you are better in one. But personally, if I am hiring today, I would want someone who is capable of doing both somewhere. Right? Does that make sense to you? I agree with your point that you will have expertise in one of the two. I'm not denying that. But in a startup, when things are very fast, you can't go like this person is going to do only front end, this person is going to do only back end. That you can afford maybe after a while. But when you're just starting off, to be able to fix bugs, to be able to deliver very fast, you want someone who is flexible enough to be able to work on both.
Yeah, in terms of startup, yeah, it makes sense.
So we are talking about startups today.
Oh.
Yeah. So your second question was regarding low-level design. So I don't think anyone can be properly expert in that. Today, when I also start writing code, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, even though I teach design patterns on my channel. It's not like I'm going to come up with the best design pattern in once itself. We probably discussion will help. There will be people who will be reviewing my code. So all of these things will help, and I think it's all about practice. The more you implement different types of design patterns, the more you practice, you become better and better. There's no one way to really, be very good at writing code in low level. So, yeah. I don't think we can take any other questions. So thank you so much. I hope you had a good time. Thank you.